Hey guys, I've got a treat for you today. This is a really great bottle of port. I bought this a year ago, a little more. I let it sit because port is something that I really enjoy. I was kind of waiting to savor it, and this is a really great bottle. For those of you who are not familiar with port wine, it's actually a fortified wine. I don't know a huge amount about wine generally. It's one of the more complex and I think daunting things to be able to grapple with. If you guys have seen sommelier or sommelier into the wine, you have such a broad set of berries, flavor profiles, regions it grew in, just so much that it's almost overwhelming. This, I can say, is a really great bottle. If you're looking for something that's a little bit closer, I would say towards a dessert wine, something a little bit sweet. You're not certain what kind of red to get. I tend to like Pinot Noir. I can find a fairly inexpensive bottle of Pinot for 10 bucks. This probably cost about 20, something like that. I bought it so long ago, I can't recall. But this is a really great bottle. I was anxious to crack this open and go ahead and have a taste again. It's really good. And I could go into a little bit of detail. I just wanted to bring up some information in case you guys are interested in looking up information about port wine itself. If you go to the Wikipedia article, it gives you a little bit of information about the fortified wines produced outside of Portugal. I think that port is a specific European Union, they call it, protected designation of origin. So only wines within Portugal are considered port. I don't know if they just call it fortified wine when they're in other locations or regions, kind of like champagne and sparkling wine. As I scrolled through just to get some basics, I was really taken aback because I knew that there was a ruby and there was a tawny. I was surprised to find out that apparently there's a rosé. The ones that I've had have primarily been within the ruby or the tawny group. The tawnies, I think, are a little more palatable to somebody who's maybe new. If you like other kinds of wine, that may be a choice that you go towards a rosé or, sorry, a ruby, something along those lines. Excuse me. The port itself comes from a winery that I had not heard of previously that I had to pull up online. I really love this stuff. I find it interesting. The company that I'm most familiar with is Dow's Port. I don't know enough about wine regions within Portugal to be able to say, what's going on. Again, it's inordinately complex. I'm just trying to figure it out as I can go. I absolutely love the fact that I get a sense of the feel of the landscape just from their website. And then a little bit of information. I was really surprised to find out they had information on the climate, including meteorological data. Then they had information on the soil type and the vineyard itself. A little bit of information about the number of hectares that it takes up. All really interesting. This stuff is inordinately complex. And when I spent time watching Sommelier and Somm Into the Wine, I was just very taken aback at how inordinately complex all of this is. And just to give you an idea, we use the term vintage in America pretty regularly. And vint is from wine itself, from wine. So the vintage, meaning the year that something was produced, the weather changes and meteorological changes affect the wine itself in different regions. And it's the sort of thing, again, that terroir, like trying to figure out where the liqueur or liquor comes from, where the wine comes from, how the soil, the climate, the kind of grapes, how it's processed affect the wine itself is inordinately interesting to me. I'm going to go ahead and pour this. Again, I think just inordinately good. I had a great time sampling this last time. I thought it was super tasty. I even like the bottle design being just not plain, but fairly simple. It's extremely rich. That was why I said, maybe if you're into dessert wine, you might want to try this. I get notes of, like plum, raisin, maybe like dried cherries, but inordinately robust. The flavor, the smell, the scent as it hits my sinus passages just spreads. There's a real depth just to the flavor itself, to the aroma, I should say. Dried fruit, maybe dried figs, a little bit, but a little sweeter. One of the things I noticed that was interesting about this bottle particularly was I didn't feel like I was picking up a huge amount of oak, which I assumed is what the port is actually aged in. I'm interested to find out if it's just that it's just a very balanced port. The tawnies, I think, are aged a little bit longer. I was actually surprised because I've had tawny that are almost brown looking, whereas you can tell that this was red. There's, some brownish, but it was a little more robust in the berry part of the flavor profile. I've had some other port that was a darker in color as a tawny. I think, again, this is a great starting point. If you've never sampled port and you want to try something that's a little bit more like a dessert wine, I think this in particular would go well with any kind of beef. You want to have a steak. I think it would go well with a charcuterie board, cheese, fruit, something complex. I think the strongness, the way that the port stands up, can go with the other kinds of meats like beef that would be stronger, maybe even game if that's something you're interested in. I think this is very robust. It's not light. It doesn't shy away. Full of berries, almost like a, dare I say, a little scent of watermelon is what it reminded me of. The watermelon is like floating on the top. The berries, just this real deep flavor profile. Salud. Yeah, the flavor profile, just this at the end, just this robust, like raisins, prunes, fermented plums. It got a little bit just for a second. It's interesting to me, all the flavors that I pull up. I tasted fig Newt specifically. You ate those as a kid. The fruit, that dried fig that's slightly sweetened. I get a little bit of that fig Newton flavor mixed into the flavor profile. I am so completely blown away by the sampling that I've done. I hope to become rich enough to become the alcoholic I aspire to be. If this is the good life, I want more of it. This is amazing. And this is not an inordinately expensive bottle of port. You could probably buy bottles of port that are thousands of dollars. This is really, really good. It's sensual enough that I think this would be like a good date night alcohol if you're looking for a date, you're making dinner for somebody. I don't know if it would pair well with like fish or lighter flavors. I think the reason I said beef or game is I think this would stand up. It's sweet, but it doesn't taste artificial. It's balanced. It's not too much oak, it's not too much alcohol, it's not too much sugar. It's this floating in equilibrium. It's got, I want to say it's homogeneous, but it's like it doesn't like stand out on the oak. It's not abrupt on the sweetness. It's got this amazing flavor profile that goes across my palate in waves. There's so much to be said about it from the standpoint of, do you like the bottle? Do you like the flavor? Do you like the way it makes you feel? This is the sort of thing that really excites me about doing these food tastings and exploring in more depth. I'm applying the same nuanced geekery and education that I did to bodywork. Digging through cultures, discovering Thai massage, ferreting out everything I could as a Westerner to be able to explore, bring more depth to that tradition. You know, what is it from a white guy from South Louisiana now living in Central Texas having a bottle of port? It's a strange world, but I'm glad that I grew up in a time in which I could enjoy this. Just that little bit, 10% fig Newton, dried figs, candied maybe. I think some of that watermelon I said is the sweetness that I sense. Rich, so full of berries. Just makes me think of blackberry, maybe cherries. And then it's not the Rainier cherries, it's the dark tart cherries that I've had. This might go well with chocolate. I think it would stand up. So robust. Just an amazing flavor profile. I'm so glad I'm able to explore stuff like this, be able to find out more information about specific ports. I've got my work cut out for me if things are this complex. If you're a big port fan and you have a recommendation, something you think I ought to try, please contact me and let me know. I'd love to go ahead and sample other bottles, seeing what else is out there. I thought that there was or there is a white port. That's why I was confused. There is a white port as well. I think I've only had the white once, the ruby once. Most of the bottles I've had till now have been tawny. I think the tawny again is probably the most approachable unless you're already a wine fan. If you're already a wine fan, I think it might be easier to go into the white ports or the rubies. Then they're going to information about, you know, whether it's vintage, whether it's filtered or unfiltered. Man, there's just so much to go along with it. Oh, too much. Too much information, guys. It's a good life. One of the things that I'm most impressed by is the affluence in the United States allows us to import things like this. And then how do you bring it into your culture? I talk about a lot being from South Louisiana. People would talk about Thai massage and say, well, you know, but you're a white guy, is this really Thai? And I would get into these conversations because it reminds me of South Louisiana culture as it relates to food and also as it relates to jazz. And I would say, is jazz, is it European? Is it African? Or is it Caribbean? Because it's really all of those things. It's this new thing that was created because of this cultural clash. When you're in Texas, we argue about barbecue, we argue about tacos, we argue about chili. Texas barbecue, is it Czech? Is it Mexican? Is it it's like it's not even that old. It's probably just a couple hundred years old. So it's this culture clash, this thing of these things collide, and what do they become in America? I was very taken. I think it was in sommelier, but it might have been Somm into the wine, where an American winemaker was talking about how they make, you know, wine in France and Italy. And he just said, listen, I'm trying to make American wine. And that notion is so tied into what I've been doing with Thai massage over the years. It's trying to figure out through my own physical expression in my own culture, what does Thai massage look like in Central Texas? This is a really great port. I highly recommend you check this out. If you guys have had this one and you can recommend another, maybe you want to come on the podcast, do a tasting with me, please let me know. This is really, really great stuff. And thank you much to the company. I'm going to pull up their website again. Real Companhia Velha, I think is how you pronounce it. Real Companhia Velha. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you very much for this production. This bottle is really, really tasty. I'm very excited to learn more, and I might have to check out more from this specific company and see what else is available. You guys go ahead and have a great day. I hope you enjoyed the review. Again, if there's anything you'd like me to sample, just comment down below and I'll see if I can do that. Maybe grab a bottle. You guys have a great day, and I appreciate your time and attention.